Welcome to Planetary Gig Talk, Tales of Music and Magic. I'm your host, Jefferson Glassy, Chief Spiritual Dude of the Planetary Gig Society, whose mission is making connections through music with the intention of bringing peace. And today, here in the worldwide headquarters, the Planetary Gig Society in Studio One, I am very, very pleased to be able to talk with one of my best friends, fabulous harmonica player from Seattle, Washington, Grant Dermody. Hello, Grant.
Hey, Jeff. How you doing?
I'm doing great.
Good.
I'm so happy that you're here. We had a wonderful musical event last night, house concert with you and Frank Fatuski. It was amazing. It was World Singing Day. People had their singing chops going. Mm-hmm. You intrigued and I got a lot of people to sing, although I will say they just kind of started singing right off. It didn't take them long, did it?
We didn't really have to invite them.
Yeah. And you and Frank have been on a sort of a tour coming down from Maine. You're doing your traveling troubadour thing, and that's been going pretty well?
It has. It's been great. We've had some really good shows. I love playing with Frank. We just keep diving in deeper all the time, and it's great. It's just great playing music for people.
Yeah, planetary gigs, more gigs around the planet, and more music in the home, which is something that I think we'd all be better off if we did more of. So would like to talk a little bit with you ask about your sort of growing up. Was there music in your house? Did your parents play music, listen to music? And when and where did you kind of come to music and end up with the harmonica as your instrument?
Well, as far as instruments played in my house growing up, that really wasn't the case. My dad desperately wanted us to be Scottish. We weren't. We were Irish. But he lived with that disappointment, not really all that well, for a long time. and he, so we heard a lot of bagpipe records. Dad played bagpipe records in the stereo. We had one of those huge, like, pieces of furniture kind of stereo things.
Right.
And so that's what Dad would play. Mom was into gospel. She was into Marian Anderson, and she would play really beautiful vocalists. Now, my sister was probably the most hands-on influence. She was 6 years older than me. Her name's Robin. And she was into Bob Dylan, Leonard Cohen, The Association. She bought me my first LP, Crosby, Stills and Nash, Deja Vu. And she took me to my first concert, Bob Dylan and the Band, in like 1972. So that's what I had going. And then I picked up I always, as far as like things that I wanted to play, we had like a zither that was not in tune. We had ukuleles with 3 strings.
Yikes.
We had that kind of stuff. So I never really made music off of those things. But I started getting into rhythm really early. I was into I liked beats. I liked rhythm.
Like how, like 6th grade or 5th grade?
Third, yeah. And I was so I was banging my mom's knitting needles around, and she got me a pair of drumsticks because she didn't want to knit with crooked needles, I guess.
I can imagine that would be a trial.
Yeah. So she got me drum lessons. I started taking lessons from a classical percussionist in the Seattle Symphony, and that was great for a while. And then I didn't want to do classical music anymore, so I stopped doing that. Dabbled with the guitar, and then my dad bought me a harmonica when I was 18, and I was living in Fairbanks, Alaska, and I just took off with it. It was a 12-hole key of C, and I just started playing. This was Fairbanks right during the pipeline, 1976.
Wow.
So there was a ton of money. There were 10, 11, 12 places to hear live music on a given night in a town of 60,000 people. And I just started playing with everything. Turns out my dad was a great musician. He played harmonica himself, although I never heard him play harmonica in the house growing up. And he also was a great violinist, and he didn't even have a violin anymore. So I don't know what happened with that, but I never heard anybody playing instruments.
But he gave you that gift of that harmonica, and then after that you had to buy harmonicas in different keys, and you just started playing around. Was there a teacher in Alaska up there that you could?
Yeah, I remember just. So I started off just kind of fooling around with the harmonica from a rhythmic standpoint, because the last thing I played was drums. And so I was just trying to fool around with different things to do. And I'm literally walking down the street doing that, and a friend of mine comes by with another person that I hadn't met, and we kind of intersected at the intersection, and turns out he played harmonica.
Wow.
He was a counselor at the local college, and he had, when he was getting his counseling degree, he was in a class, and one of the professors said, "All right, for this entire school year, you are going to choose 2 things that you've always wanted to do that you haven't done." And he chose harmonica and pinball.
Well, why not? Sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So he taught me how to bend notes and get single notes and how to do kind of the things that you need to do on the harmonica, and he really got me going. His name's Jackson Hiley, and he's still a good friend.
Yeah. So there you are playing music in Alaska, and what was the next sort of step in your musical trajectory?
I started playing with anybody who would let me play. Big hair rock and roll bands and blues bands and rock bands and singer-songwriters and old-time. I would just play with anybody. And then I got into a band. I met a guitar player from Rhode Island named Bob Emmett, and his brother Barry played bass. And we formed kind of a trio. And Bob was big time into Josh White and Lightnin' Hopkins, and so we started doing that kind of stuff. And it was great. And then things changed, because I wasn't just sitting in with people doing what they were doing. We were creating our own thing and coming up with songs that we would do. So I started singing, started taking a look at that kind of deal, and it changed. That was the next step.
Yeah. What kind of music were you playing, and when did you get into the sort of acoustic blues or country blues, whatever area?
Well, let's see. So I moved down to Seattle again in 1982, and I was playing a lot of electric blues, kind of the Chicago thing, which I love, which is great. But somewhere along the line, I heard Sonny Terry play, and I heard some of the acoustic players, and I started teaching at the Port Townsend Country Blues workshop. And I started hanging out with people like John Jackson, John Cephas, Aljamain Hinton, Ethel Caffey Austin, John D. Holman, Louisiana Red, Big Joe Dutch, all kinds of folks. And I started to really get into acoustic blues and realize this is what I want to do.
Yeah, well, those are some special people, really, the all-stars. But I won't let you get away without telling a story that I've heard you tell about hearing Sonny Terry one time, and it's kind of a note changed your life, you might say.
Well, when I started, as you said, when I started realizing there was more than one key harmonica, and I started accumulating them, and I started listening to records. One of the records I heard that knocked me out completely was Sonny Terry's Smithsonian Folkways record. And I saw him twice when he was playing with Brownie McGee, and they came through Seattle, and I was visiting my family. So one time I'm down there, and I see a poster on a telephone pole, and saying that they're going to be playing in a couple of days. So I'm the first guy in line. I'm right front and center listening to these guys. And they were fighting a lot in those days, and Brownie I remember, kind of got his nose out of joint and said, "I'm going to go. I'm going to leave." And Sonny said, "Go." So he did. And Sonny's playing solo harmonica in front of a big crowd of people. And I never heard anybody play solo harmonica before. And he was amazing. And then live, I hadn't heard it live. So he's talking about a story. He's saying that his woman told him that if he didn't stop messing around and coming home late, she was going to change the lock on the door.
Uh-oh.
And he didn't believe her. So he comes home late one night, and his key doesn't work. And he's talking to the audience saying, "Well, I figured I'd go around to the back of the house, and I'd play my harmonica soft and pretty and see if she'd let me in that way." And he hits this note. I hadn't been playing harmonica very long, but looking back on it, that note that he played had everything I love about the harmonica. It was deep and powerful and rich and spiritual and nasty and greasy and sweet and pretty. I mean, it was like everything all rolled into one. And it hit me right between the eyes and just knocked me back in my seat. And it went right through my head and hit the woman behind me, who said, "Oh, God, let him in."
Wow.
And so I turned around and I looked at the expression on her face. I mean, and it was cool from a, the coolest thing about it was that one note had affected me, and it had affected her, and it probably affected everybody in the room. And that music could do that music could hit you so hard like that just with one note.
Wow, that's really powerful. I mean, that one note kind of changed your life in a way.
Yeah, it made me want to play and get to where, I could make a note like that.
Wow. So you were hanging around with John Jackson. I only saw him late in his career at Blues Week at Davis and Elkins College up in West Virginia, and what a gentleman! What a sweet man, and his music was just the same.
Yeah, he was an amazing being. He could lift you up, just by being in his presence. He could lift you up, and he believed in me before I knew how to believe in myself. He was really encouraging. He was one of my mentors, even though he didn't play harmonica. I mean, he taught me how to approach music, what to do when you play music, how you interact with other people, and just how to be a man on the planet. He was just he taught me a lot.
So I met you, I guess this is not too long after that, but before we met in, I believe, 98 at Blues Week, you cut a record with some folks too. Mm-hmm. I always loved that record. I always liked that record. Great. So that was the Improbabillies, right?
Right.
Great name for a group.
Yeah. Our friend Willie Dunn came up with that name. He lives in Homer, Alaska. So Improbable Hillbillies. Improbabillies. So
it's perfect.
Yeah, it's pretty great. So that band came about because I started going to the Alaska Folk Festival in Juneau in 1990. And there's some phenomenal musicians up there, but very few of them, if any, really play blues from like a country blues or a Chicago blues kind of standpoint. So if I wanted to play, I needed to learn how to do what they were doing. So that was old-time fiddle tunes, Cajun kind of stuff. So I started diving into that and learning how to do that on the harmonica. And Scotty Meyer was one of the people I really wanted to learn how to play music with. He's a tremendous musician and a great, great, great fiddle player. And Forrest Gibson was we started playing with him too. So like the three of us kind of had this thing. And then we added Richie Stearns on banjo, and that was great. And the June Drucker played bass, and we went down to New Orleans and recorded at Al Tharp's studio and made a record. And we've been talking about making another one ever since. That's only been 20 years. You don't want to rush into these things.
I bet you people still buy that record.
It's kind of a cult thing, and we didn't think it was going to be like that. I didn't know, because I didn't know anything about old time music. But Scotty was like, we're going to get. He thought that it wouldn't go over well because we weren't really very purist in our approach. But people seem to really like it, and I went to Dublin, Ireland. And there's this place called the Cobblestone Pub right downtown in Dublin, Ireland. And there's a guy named Bill Whelan that plays banjo, and he and two of his buddies know every song off that record.
That's amazing.
So when I walked in to do a session with them, just not knowing that was going to happen, we ended up playing all the tunes there were. It's really fun.
Yeah, well, about the time I met you, I kind of went through a midlife crisis, and in some ways a spiritual transformation, and just music changed my life back then, and wanting to learn the harmonica became, kind of gave my life meaning in a way that was different than other things that you do. And I learned a lot of I learned a lot of harmonica by listening to your songs, slowing them down on this little thing I had called a riff-o-matic, which would take 36 seconds of a song, and you just played it over and over and over and over. And so it is sort of a spiritual thing, this life with music, I guess. And on some of the long drives to Elkins, back with Eileen and Julie in one car and me and you in another car. I think one time we were talking about Buddhism or the meaning of life or something on Route 81, and we totally missed the turn. They had to catch us. We had to go, do a U-turn and all that. But one of the great things about our relationship is we have had those conversations quite a bit, and I'd like it if you could talk a little bit about, because you had a transformation, in terms of religion, I guess, if you will, and what that meant and what that kind of looked like.
Okay. Yeah, we have. We've had a lot of great conversations like that, for sure. I was raised Catholic. My dad studied to be a priest. It didn't work for me. I'm not a Catholic basher. There's a lot of people who have found Catholicism to be a good spiritual path for them. I just wasn't one of them. So I started looking around kind of for other things, and I started getting turned on to Eastern religion, Eastern thought, and that made more sense to me. The concept of multiple lives, the concept of karma, the concept of I guess the main concept is that I don't believe that we are deeply flawed beings, and that there's only one way out from being a deeply flawed being. I think that we are deeply perfect beings, and we're just trying to move whatever's in the way out of the way so that we can shine as brightly as we can. We all have the light of the divine within us, and it's about that. And that intuitively made much more sense.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm really not into the you're not deserving of the best things that life has to offer, and you're not this, you're not that, you're not. Doesn't work. Doesn't resonate for me at all. So I went the other way, or another way.
And I know you commented the other night as an intro to a song you did saying, there's a lot of good Christian church music, but not much Buddhist music.
Yeah, Buddhist gospel songs are kind of hard to have people sing along to,
Yeah, but you can certainly have that spirit when you play, and I guess maybe it relates to the interaction with the audience, what you're bringing, connection, that sort of thing.
One of the cool things about Buddhism is that every prayer you do, every good deed you do, is for the benefit of all beings. And so if you look at it that way, then every note you play and everything that you do from a musical standpoint is also for the benefit of all beings. And so if you look at it that way, then it becomes very inclusive and very much about all of us.
All of us. Well, that sounds like love to me, and but I don't know if a lot of people know, people who know you maybe, but you sort of took where you were with Buddhism and the music, and actually have become a shaman. And I would like it if you could just discuss that briefly a little bit. What is shamanism? And, because I don't know, how do shamanism and music interrelate?
Absolutely, yeah. Well, I started seeing a shamanic practitioner in Seattle as a client, and I started to learn from her. She's also a Buddhist, so it was kind of so both things were happening. And then I started showing up to some of her teachings, and very much like I did Buddhism, I started off way in the perimeter and started just sort of circling toward the center at kind of my own pace. And it started to make sense, and it started to be something that I realized that I could do, and I started to do it. And I met some just amazing people along the way that were very supportive, much like music. And so, so what shamanism is the oldest form of spiritual. I think it's the oldest spiritual path that maybe you can find.
Huh.
It goes way, 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 way back, and it's in every culture. And it's hard to explain exactly. I guess if you were going to try to distill it down, you could look at it like, well, the shamanic practitioner in old ancient tribes, their role was sometimes very practical. Where is the game that we need to hunt,
Where's the water?
to survive? Where's the water? Yeah, where is, what is the weather going to be doing? And so the shamanic practitioner would tap into the spirit world to find out the answers to these questions. And so the survival of the tribe depended on that.
And it's a very intuitive thing then, I guess.
It can be, but it's also direct contact with the spirit world and asking a direct question and getting a direct answer. And so from a shamanic standpoint, there are helping spirits that are here to help us, and we can go and communicate with them. And everything has a spirit. Trees, water, stones. There's the spirit of the harmonica. There's the spirit of music. There's the spirit of all kinds of things. And so if you are in a state where you can center and listen and tap into that, then music becomes as deep as you can get.
Wow. I mean, who knew, sort of? But it's amazing the way a lot of these things tie in. I was talking with a bass player about Tai Chi and quantum physics, and kind of all is the same thing in a sense. And you've it seems to me you feel very, happy and fulfilled with the way the path has led, or the path you've chosen with this practice.
Mm-hmm.
And you even said sort of shamanism is music, or it's the same as music.
Yeah, it's about energy, and it's about communication, and it's about connecting, and it's about having it be about all of us. And so from its very most, the deepest root form, it's all the same thing.
Just bringing out the power of the is. I mean, I know last night some of the songs, whether it was, some of the playing, Frank is so great on the guitar, some of your harmonica notes and the intensity that you bring to it, and the singing. But when everybody starts singing in a room, it's pretty powerful. I mean, I felt, chills a couple of times, tears welling up, sort of a thing. It's just has such awesomeness. Power is almost too easy of a word. But so that's one of the things that we do, and we're trying to talk about with Planetary Gig Society is using those connections, using music to help have more conversations, but with an intention of doing good, whether it's uncovering peace or bringing peace, or just better world or whatever. So I kind of feel that you perceive that and do that in a way, and when you're in your travels.
Well, so last night playing here, it was very much like playing in front of and with family, and we all, my wife Eileen, who was a good friend to you, and Julie, passed away coming up on 8 years ago, and so I sing about that. I sing about grieving. I sing about it's not the only thing that we do, but we do look at that. And so everybody on the planet experiences grief. Everybody on the planet experiences love, experiences joy, experiences all the things that we as human beings experience. And so music can run the gamut of all of that, and the harmonica can get any emotion you have. Whatever you feel, you can put it out through the harmonica. You just have to be willing to go there. And sometimes it's hard to go there because it's not a pleasant place. But if you are willing to do that, then the instrument can help you once you're there. So last night there was a lot of that going on. There was a lot of energy around that. And I've written 2 or 3 songs about that, about what it was like to lose my wife and both of my parents in a short amount of time. And people come up to me after the concert and say, I lost my husband 3 weeks ago. Thank you for the song. I really understand what you're saying. And thank you for, doing that so that I can have something that I can listen to and that says what I feel. And that transcends any of this other stuff. As we've spoken, there are forces that are very actively trying to separate us and keep us apart and tell us that we are not one, that we are not together, that we are divided, that we are separate, that we are red, blue, whatever it might be. And that's just not true. That is a falsehood that's perpetuated so that an advantage can be gained by people who want that advantage. And music can cut through all of that and bring us right back to where we are the same. We are the one. We are part of this deal, and we're all in it together.
Yeah, boy, that again, being in a room with people singing and sort of feeling the same emotions, and it's certainly one thing. I mean, I know there's art and literature and a lot of things, but somehow that shared experience of the vibrational energy of music really can bring us together. And it's amazing what great musicians like yourself do, and bringing it to people. And I think society would be a lot better off if we could have more music.
So we need to do that. We need to do more music. People, go. I have a ton of harmonica students, and some pick up the harmonica later in life, and it's never too late to pick up an instrument and make music. And doing that makes the world a better place. And then sitting down with another person or other people and creating music together is a beautiful thing to do. It's a great thing. Having a house concert in your home and inviting somebody to come in and play and have that experience where everybody is in an intimate place, listening to great music, maybe singing along, and it brings us together.
Well, there's not too much that's better than that. I guess I just really want to say thank you very much for taking the time. It's always a pleasure to have you here with us and to hear your music again, and being able to talk with you about some of these things. It just feels, right at home for me. Just, sort of brother to brother conversation. And
me too. Thank you.
We'll just keep trying to do that.
Sounds good.
All right. Thanks very much, Grant.
All right. Thank you.
You've been listening to Planetary Gig Talk, Tales of Music and Magic. I'm your host, Jefferson Glassy, Chief Spiritual Dude of the Planetary Gig Society. We talk with musicians and others about the power of music and how we can use music to help create a better world. Please check out our website, www.planetarygigs.org, for information about some of the organizations promoting music and musicians, resources about the power of music, books, movies, articles, including new research on music and the brain. We welcome your support. The Planetary Gig Society is a Section 501c3 charitable organization, and you can donate on the website. You also can receive a free email signature block demonstrating your support for Planetary Gig Society. Please follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Planetary Gigs. And we want to thank fabulous musician and teacher Eric Weinberg of Little Eric Studios for the Planetary Gig Talk music titled Chill Kid, It's Saul. So please check out Planetary Gig Talk on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher. Subscribe and hear all the upcoming episodes. Thanks very much.